Miller, Pruett, Racer.com, silly season update video. Because if we wrote everything we knew, we thought we knew, it'd be a 17-volume, 45,000-word story. So instead, we're going to give you the Cliff's Notes version of what's going on. Craziest last 2 weeks I've seen in a long time, brother, because every time we think something's going on, we hear something different.
Yeah. So the fun thing is actually trying to stay on top of everything that's going on, and it does, believe it or not, change daily. Robin here has been staking out a variety of team owners, manufacturers, a couple of restraining orders that he's gotten this weekend. But that's the fun part, honestly. We hope that's something you guys are enjoying too. The fact that there is so much movement that's being discussed that should happen. You know, when we talk about silly, this stuff does get silly, and the volume of silly is bordering on ridiculous. Starting with, what's the number one domino to fall?
Michael Andretti. He's got a restraining order. I can only get within 500 feet of him on race weekends. It's kind of sad. But he told me in Toronto, I got to listen to what Chevrolet has to say. I owe it to my team. Yeah. We had a good relationship with them. They've talked to the Honda people this weekend, and Michael says he hasn't made up his mind yet.
Which we believe. There's no reason to doubt him. Do I think we believe he knows where he's leaning?
Yep.
Absolutely. There's nobody here that would be surprised if Michael returns next year with bow ties on his car. Even the folks at Honda, again, not on the record, nothing official, but you just kind of check the pulse, and they wouldn't be too surprised if they lost Michael.
They've won Indy 3 times with Honda, and they've had a good relationship. But Michael's got one real good sponsor, that's DHL with Ryan Hunter-Ray. Everything else is no sponsor at all. And when you got a 4-car team and somebody's trying to give you money, you almost have to take it.
And that is the one thing we know that Michael needs. And we're not saying this in a negative or degrading way. Michael's trying to do big things in motor racing, not just IndyCar. He's obviously already in Formula E, has that relationship developing. He's wanting to get into sports cars. We should hopefully have some news on that in the very near future here. He's in Global Rallycross. The IndyCar side, unfortunately, has not been a big money generator. No. And you look at Chevy and their needs, and they need more than just Team Penske to rely on each weekend to show up and to be able to win. You look here this weekend, we've got a Penske 1-2 front row. It's looking like Penske should deliver yet again, but what on those weekends where they can't? Ed Carpenter Racing, we know they're strong on ovals, but if I'm Chevy and I'm looking at what I need to do to come back next year, I want to add someone that can help us put numbers up in terms of quality drivers to get us more wins if Team Penske can't. That's where Michael Andretti's team stands out as the one to get.
So his whole domino effect is this. If he stays, we don't have nearly as many stories. If he goes, we got Alexander Rossi and Takuma Sato because they're Honda guys. And Honda's going to find a place for them to drive. Ray Hall, Schmidt, Peterson, Ganassi, we don't know. But it's going to be in the Honda family. Now, Tony Kanaan has been saying it doesn't look like he's coming back to Ganassi, but he's also a Honda guy. Honda wants him to stay in the lineup. So who knows? Ganassi may lose 2 cars, 3 cars, or no cars. We don't know. If Max Shelton takes his money and starts his own team with Trevor Carlin and drags his old pal Charlie Kimball with him.
Maybe Takuma Sato?
Yeah. Takuma could go to Ray Hall because, Bob ran him. They almost won the Indy 500 a few years ago together.
Dale Coyne has expressed an interest in Takuma.
Right.
So here's another thing that's fun about the silly season. All predicated upon Michael moving from Honda to Chevy. You have Rossi, who we know Brian Herta and that whole team behind that Brian had put together. They're definitely Honda people, very close with the Rossis. I would say that they are tied together more than Rossi and Andretti. But you also think about Sato. A year ago, it was a question of where might he end up? Where could he go? Now, all of a sudden, again, if Michael switches engine manufacturers, Takuma could be one of the hot properties too, which is pretty cool for him.
It is. So that's all the dominoes. There's so many scenarios, but all the drivers we named are pretty much the guys part of the Honda family Honda wants to take care of. Now, James Hinchcliffe is also part of the Honda family in the United States and in Canada.
Yep.
He hasn't signed with Schmidt Peterson Motorsports yet. He wants to stay there. Sam says he wants to keep him. Honda says they want to keep him there. Obviously, they've given them more direction here lately and more responsibility being a test team. So that's a good team.
And if you look at, if Andretti is the biggest team domino, Hinch is clearly the big driver domino. And if we're talking Ganassi possibly losing 2, maybe 3 of its 4 drivers, Charlie Kimball, you spoke with him, Robin. He said, he was very outright in saying, my budget's been reduced. That could make things hard for Charlie to stay at Ganassi. We know he's spoken with Andretti. Andretti had some interest, but again, half a budget. Michael has a bunch of drivers right now with half a budget, or maybe even less.
Yeah.
But Charlie's someone who could be on the market. But you talk about this Hinch scenario. If he can stay with Sam, great. If he gets Rossi, who's one of his closest friends there, that becomes a super team. But at the same time, what about Hinch to Ganassi if Honda is really trying to populate that team?
Exactly.
If Chip's down a couple cars. So there are a lot of text flying about the paddock here and private conversations, and there's a lot of people talking.
If Marshall would have had his camera just watching the Honda bus this week, with all the drivers and owners going back and forth, it's fascinating stuff. So here's Hinch. Let's say he stays at Smith-Peterson. Who do they put with him? Because Arrows probably wants to run 2 cars next year. You get Rossi, you get Tony Kanaan. I don't know, but I know this. Honda does like to take care of their drivers, maybe more so than anybody I've seen, and they want to keep this little family intact. So whatever Hinch decides what his future is, and I think Honda's going to probably play a part in it sooner than later, then we'll be able to tell where the openings are. It's just that you can't. If anybody tells you they know exactly where somebody's going, they're nuts. Because we're not very smart, but we're smart enough to pay attention.
So we're also looking at Robin Spencer Pigot. Where could he end up? I'll have a story out here shortly. Spoke with Ed Carpenter. He said of his 2 current drivers, J.R. Hildebrand and Spencer, he has a much shorter negotiating window with Spencer. Leads me to believe there's some interest being expressed in him elsewhere. Could that be with a Andretti Chevy team, if that's where he goes? Could that be outside of that Chevy stable? Who knows? Ed Jones has also told us it was really helpful winning the Lights Championship, getting that graduation prize, about $1 million to help solidify his budget. That's only for 1 year. What do you do when you come back for that second year? He's a little bit concerned about how much budget he could raise, but I'd also say I think he's done enough this year as a rookie to make some folks realize, don't just look at this kid for dollars. You might consider hiring him, and if he can bring some money, that's a benefit.
Right. And Esteban Gutierrez has done a nice job for Dale Coyne. They keep talking about having a race in Mexico City next year around this time, maybe early August, and you got to have him in the lineup. Yep. And I asked him yesterday, I said, what do you want to be next year? He says, I want to be in this paddock driving full-time IndyCar. Yep. So he's pretty much made up his mind.
And he has some ties to another team in this paddock too.
Yes, he does, and I think he also has some ties to Carlos Slim, who has a little bit more money than most people we know.
Who has an old relationship with Chip Ganassi.
Right.
So we're not saying that that's what's happening. We're just saying if you look at the person who has been a financial backer for Esteban, we know Sebastian Bourdais in for a 2-year deal at Coyne, so he'll be back. Dale's told us he wants to have Ed back.
Yeah.
I haven't heard about them trying to expand to 3 cars, so if Esteban's the odd person out, we at least know that Carlos Slim and Chip Ganassi have a very old and positive relationship.
Right. And I forgot to mention that if Michael Andretti loses 2 drivers, he'd certainly try to recruit Hinch because they won 3 races together. You know, General Motors liked Hinch a lot, and that's the guy, if I'm Michael Andretti, he's one of the guys I'm going after. So all this has to, we're going to have a break here for 3 weeks. But I think everybody involved wants to know, number 1, where's Michael going? Number 2, where's Hinch going? And then everything else can maybe sort itself out.
And here's one other big angle that we'll close on. So if we think about this, and again, we're talking about scenarios, if they play out, what might shake out. So if Michael goes to Chevy, we know he's going to lose 1 or 2 drivers, most likely 2. Chevy would be coming to him to get 3 or 4 really solid cars, not just Ryan Hunter-Reay and Marco Andretti. Michael would need to restock that team. Chip could lose 2 to 3 drivers. Chip's going to need to restock that team for Honda. Penske's going to be down to what we think is 3 cars. It's a big question. We don't know if anything could develop there, but we do know that at least between Ganassi and Michael Andretti, there could be a very serious need to find strong, race-winning caliber drivers. There aren't that many left in this paddock that are out of contract, available to hire, true free agents. You might have to start looking outside. In a span of about 90 seconds this morning, one team owner asked for contact information for Felix Rosenqvist, badass. That kid should be hired to drive here next year. Also asked for contact info for Brendan Hartley, who he wrote about, and also asked for contact info for Andre Lauderer, another badass. So just keep this in mind. I think most of the people you see in the paddock right now, Robin, are going to be here next year. But I also know that for some of these bigger teams to stay strong, they might have to do some hiring from outside this paddock. But that's not the only thing. There's one more twist you heard about.
Well, thanks to you, we pretty much had the Helio Castroneves story a few weeks ago about he was going to be a sports car next year and run the Indy 500 for Roger Penske because RP's cutting down to 3 cars. Nobody's confirmed it or denied it. But a couple days ago, Mr. Castroneves, the 3-time Indy winner, was seen talking to another IndyCar owner about, hey, would you have an opening next year? So maybe Helio could still run sports cars, but he doesn't want to quit driving Indy cars full time. It was just like Montoya a year ago. He doesn't want to stop that. He wants to make sure he does it. So,
but think about this, Robin. This is a good question to close on. You're Helio Castroneves. You're a 3-time Indy 500 winner. You haven't won a championship yet. Well, realistically, where are you going to go within this paddock that's going to give you a better chance of winning a 4th Indy 500 or your first championship? Roger's pretty darn good. Would you, at the age of 42, leave Roger to go continue another year, maybe 2 in Indy cars because you don't want to leave now? Or would you go with Roger, give up on IndyCar other than maybe the 500, but know that by staying with Roger, you're going to receive a nice paycheck for the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years? So really is a question of, does Helio follow his heart and move to another team, probably cut himself out of a sports car deal that's going to pay him for many years, or does he play the long game? If I'm his manager, saying, buddy, I love you, you've been here 20 years, play the long game. There aren't a lot of 49-year-old race car drivers earning a nice paycheck. Be that guy.
Right. And the only last scenario could be if Chip Ganassi wants to get back at Penske for signing Montoya, he signs Castroneves. You heard it here first. We just made that one up. All right. Racer.com, his videos, his stories, his photos, my BS. We appreciate you guys watching.
And he's got his racer hat on too, even though it looks like an NBCSN shirt and hat. Or
racer hat.
Wait a minute. Yesterday it was the NBCSN hat with a racer shirt. All right.
It doesn't matter. Thanks for watching.